Hello, and welcome to another episode of What's on the Pile. I'm Nathan Besner, and joining me is Shane Lee,
Hey, what's up?
Jane Belcastro,
Hi.
Matt Wagner,
It's Wagner.
and Jenner.
And Jenner here.
This week we've got a pairing of films with topsy-turvy plot lines and hard-boiled detectives, starting with Shattered, the 1991 mystery romance thriller directed by Wolfgang Peterson. This film tells the story of Dan Merrick, played by Tom Berenger, and his wife Judith, played by Greta Scacchi, and their horrible car accident. But was it really an accident? Dan ends up hiring Gus Klein, played by Bob Hoskins, wonderfully, to look into the mystery man who might be trying to kill him and stripping his wife. After that, we've got Cast a Deadly Spell, a hard-boiled detective story about magic, unicorns, the old ones, and the end of the world as Philip Lovecraft, played by Fred Ward, attempts to track down that ubiquitous H.P. Lovecraft tome, the Necronomicon. Along the way, he reconnects with his old sweetheart Connie, played by Julianne Moore, and ex-partner turned gangster Harry, played by Clancy Brown. But first, the amazing, the ridiculous Shattered. I love this movie. It's a personal favorite, and I don't care what other film snobs think. This is one of my favorite sick day movies, along with Tremors and The Burbs. But it's not about what I think. Whose pile was this on?
This was on my pile. My only memory of this is I think it was New Year's Eve, I think, in the back of your car, Nate. I was very drunk, and I had to lay down in the back seat. And I remember seeing a VHS copy of this movie on the floor. It's like, hey, I haven't seen that.
Wow, that is a startlingly specific memory.
It is. I don't know why I remember that, but there it is.
I remember that VHS tape, and I remember why VHS tapes were in my car.
Well, this was definitely on my pile as well. I'd never heard of this, but it's got Bob Hoskins in it, so it would definitely have been on my pile of things to watch.
I love Bob Hoskins.
Yes.
I probably saw it. Didn't remember it. Guessed the ending.
You know, between this and Roger Rabbit, I never knew that Bob Hoskins was English until very recently.
Yeah.
I can't remember. I think it was the
knew
movie
that.
with the movie with Jet Li, where he's very British. Danny the Dog, Unleashed.
Unleashed.
Yeah, and I was like,
Yeah.
wait. I was like, oh, he's doing a really good British accent. And then like, oh wait, he's British. Never knew that.
Oh yeah, no. If you've ever seen The Long Good Friday, he's about as British as they come. No, I remember Shattered getting released when I was in high school. It was interesting in that they didn't just sell it as Shattered; they sold it as Wolfgang Peterson's Shattered, which was an interesting bit of possessiveness, since Peterson was somebody who had been around for several years. Of course, he was most famous for Das Boot. He had done The Never-Ending Story. This was their first attempt to kind of sell it on the basis of the name, I think, which kind of didn't come off because Lord knows a couple of years later they didn't do Wolfgang Peterson's In the Line of Fire or Wolfgang Peterson's Air Force One. And of course, they're sure as hell not doing Wolfgang Peterson's Poseidon.
Which we're going to do at some point on this
Which we're
show.
going to do at some point, just out of sheer curiosity. But he kind of, this was, as far as I know, the last time that he actually wrote his own original screenplay. I'm guessing because the movie was a cult classic or a camp classic waiting to happen, and nobody quite knew what the hell to make of it at that point. If this had been released 2 years later, after Basic Instinct, it would have been taken as a glorious, glorious parody, or at least satire, of the then burgeoning erotic thriller scene. As it is, I think it's one of, again, I agree with you, and I agree it's not a bad thing. It's one of the most sort of deliriously ridiculous thrillers ever made.
Oh, I would definitely agree with that. It is deliriously ridiculous. It's a great way to put it. It's so if you can get past near the beginning, the sex scene to Knights in White Satin.
Yeah,
I know,
That
was
is the
definitely
endurance
it was a
test of
trial.
the picture, to be
And
sure.
the
Was that a
crashing
trial?
waves overlaid on top of it.
Yes.
I mean, it's an interesting optical effect as much as anything else. At the same time, it's all to the tune of, frankly, and I don't know if this was deliberate or not. I don't know if this was somebody getting the joke before anybody else even realized there was a joke, but it is kind of Alan Silvestri's most amusingly cheesy score.
Mhm. I love the score on this.
Yeah.
This is basically if a soap opera had money.
Yes,
You know.
that's a wonderful way of putting it.
Mm.
And some really evocative sets, and Laszlo Kovacs to photograph it, for God's sake. This is a wonderful, ridiculous movie, but it's a joy, and it's been forever since I've seen it, and I'm glad we're revisiting it at this point.
No, I am too. The last time it was probably 15 years ago. I tried to share this with a group of friends who ended up really hating the experience, and I never
Oh,
showed it to anybody again because
Oh.
I guess they didn't get my sense of humor about it. In that, this is why I love the film. I love that it's so earnest about its ridiculous choices. It really, I mean, Wolfgang Peterson believes in what he's making, and he's making it to the best of his ability. And sometimes that means Knights in White Satin. And
I get the feeling Peterson has been an out gay man since the late 70s. I did, and I'm not exactly, but almost ashamed of thinking this when we were watching the movie. Is like, is this what a rich gay man thinks that rich straight people are like?
Actually, I think that's actually the sex scenes in Lord of Illusions, but because I'm sorry, I love Clive Barker. I love everything he's done. The man should not direct straight sex scenes ever again.
Lord of Illusions, I mean, I'm jumping ahead, but that kind of reminded me a lot of the second movie we're going to talk about. At least the main characters. But anyways.
Yeah.
It came unbidden to mind. I think it's funny. I'm repeating it. I don't think there's any shade involved. It's just I wonder.
Yeah, I mean, Nate, the first time you saw this film, were you surprised at the ending?
I was, but
Really?
I was also I saw it in the theater. I was 10 years old.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
What was this rated?
It was very, very hard.
Definitely R.
Yeah.
Okay. What were you doing in the theater as a 10-year-old at an R-rated picture?
I saw lots of movies.
just leave it at that.
Yeah.
Just hanging out with Art Major Mother.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I got to see RoboCop early and all sorts of stuff.
Nice.
You were reasonably durable. You were well behaved, and babysitting is hard to come by.
That's right.
And here I am. First R-rated movie I ever saw was The Untouchables.
That's a good one.
Mine was RoboCop, actually.
Oh, nice.
That's a good one too.
I honestly don't remember my first R-rated movie, but oh well.
Lots of stuff edited for television, but the first unedited R-rated movie was John Frankenheimer's Robert Ludlum's The Holcroft Covenant.
Of course it was.
Because I really dug Michael Caine, and we had a trial of HBO at the time.
Yeah. I don't know, it might just be my skeptical nature, but when it started out, and I've discovered that it is a main character who has amnesia and has had plastic surgery, I kind of guessed the entire plot at that point.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So you can't go into this film expecting, really, as an adult, I guess, to be puzzled by the mystery here. So it's all about execution, and the execution is ridiculous. I think that's really the way you have to approach this one.
It's basically regarding Henry with extra cheese.
That's what I thought, because I knew nothing about this movie coming in. I was like, oh, amnesia, is this going to be like regarding Henry? Then like a few scenes later, I'm thinking, yeah, absolutely not. I doubt it's going to go in that direction. But yeah, I was not expecting essentially face swapping.
Yeah.
Basically a face-off situation.
Well, it basically argues that men are interchangeable. So.
or at least successful architects versus wannabe architects.
Yeah. I did kind of want to see, 2 years later, as he's continued with this facade and the entire architecture firm goes under because he doesn't know what the hell he's doing.
Well, remember, he was in the process of selling out.
Yeah.
To
Then
Yeah,
you
that is
still
true.
got Corbin Burnson, who is a
Another
shark.
example-
I'm sure it would be fine.
Yeah.
And again, just randomly playing the drum set in his office. Does Peterson think this is a thing people actually do?
Yes, I love
Yeah.
that bit. I've always tried to
It's really
figure out
cute.
why I find it so bizarre, but I love that bit. It's so weird.
Well,
This
just
is what
watching,
rich people do.
Just watching this movie, I figure that Burnson, then fresh off of L.A. Law or in the midst of L.A. Law, I don't remember which at that point.
I want to say he
and-
was the sexiest man alive for People magazine that year.
Oh wow.
If not that year, it was the year like
maybe a little
one or two
earlier,
later.
a little bit later.
Little
But
bit later,
in
maybe.
any case, Burnson was kind of hot, and at the same time, I think that he and Bob Hoskins are the only people in this movie who really get the joke out of the gate. Hoskins is just cheerfully devouring every bit of scenery that they can hand him in this movie. I think he was the only one who got. You realize this is ridiculous, right? Not a great Bob Hoskins impression, but you get the idea.
Yeah.
And the first example I've ever seen of Chekhov's inhaler, because
Yeah!
I noticed that he puts it.
Yeah.
He's just
Wait,
emptying
wait.
his pockets, and it's on the table. I'm like, there's an inhaler there.
An
And then,
element,
of course-
an element that Roger Ebert himself singled out as the single most ridiculous part of the movie.
Yes, that
Oh,
is,
you mean
that
at the
is
end where
not
he-
how
where-
that is not how inhalers work.
Yeah, they
Go
don't
ahead.
Yeah.
shoot oxygen out.
No.
They shoot medicine, and he was also
No.
shot twice.
And, yeah,
Once
so
in the
they-
heart, I
It fell
believe.
into toxic waste, but
Well, see, and I was
My own
thinking
tank.
that it had
Okay.
that it probably had another ending, and they just changed it to that one.
because
Like the
I really
audience,
like Bob
the
Hoskins.
test
Yeah,
audiences
I
didn't
think
want him
he
to die.
probably did die in the original script, and then
Yeah,
they
it
were
is
like,
fairly
this isn't
ridiculous.
working with audiences, and besides, he's the most fun part. Let's just get him back somehow. I mean, they let him ride in the helicopter.
Yeah,
Injured.
yeah.
I mean, that's just not going to happen.
yeah.
I like, especially with a bullet wound, they'd be taking him to a trauma center or something to that extent.
One
But
would
I mean,
hope.
at the same time, that's just one of those bits where if you're with the movie by that point, you're like, okay,
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, she
Yeah, why
did.
not?
We did just watch a car fly off a cliff at like.
That
Yeah, that
was
was
a
great.
spectacular
hilarious.
car stunt.
Yeah.
It kept falling, and I'm like, it should have hit by now. How tall is this cliff? And you lose
Because it-
all
be- because it-
scale.
Because
Yeah.
it
Keeps
looks
just getting
like it's going to
smaller.
hit the water, and as it turns out, no, it's not going to fucking hit the water. But I also want to want to give a special shout out to Tom Berenger's surprised face. As a guy who was used to playing very possibly smarter than he actually is, I don't know. That seems mean. As a guy who is used to playing, reasonably intelligent leads, like in the likes of Someone to Watch Over Me or that sort of thing, he comes into this picture as an abject deer in the headlights and freaking stays there, and no moment of the movie so wonderfully epitomizes that as that just absolutely long, bug-eyed moment of abject disbelief when he pulls you-know-what out of the formaldehyde.
Idiots.
Yeah.
Formaldehyde! She figured the chemicals would dissolve him.
That's what
It's
happens in the movies, right?
formaldehyde! Have you ever been to a funeral?
Well, I suppose it wasn't labeled, but then how did Bob Hoskins know that?
It's
I
a
don't know,
very,
If you've ever been
very
around formaldehyde,
distinctive
you know what
odor.
formaldehyde smells
Okay.
like.
Well, that's true.
Yeah,
They
but
should've
apparently
been.
she hadn't been around formaldehyde.
Just trying to keep that stink of death away, huh, Greta?
Yeah.
I mean, I even wrote in my notes, I'm like, is this a Greta Scacchi twin situation? Like, I had all these different theories, and it never occurred to me that you could be messed up in a car accident and just be given a different photo and be like, this was the original. Make him look like this again. Like, that just never occurred to me.
Push the pieces around until you get here.
Well, he didn't. The I can't remember the guy's name, Stanton or whatever.
John
He
Stanton
did
or
look
something?
a bit like Dan.
He looked a lot
So-
like him, honestly.
So I mean, the same hair. She obviously had a type, but
Obviously build on the
possible.
nose a little bit, but aside from
Tom Berenger also kind of looks a little bit like he had facial reconstructive surgery at some point.
Ouch.
He does. He has a.
He,
It's
He has a
Funky
very
face.
he has a very red and shiny face throughout the entire movie.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, at least a couple of those I think may have actually been makeup scarring or that sort of thing. Granted, I haven't seen
Yeah.
another Tom Berenger film around the same time to compare, but I mean the makeup work in this is actually really good, just all the way through. I mean it's a relatively low key, except obviously right at the beginning when we have messed up Tom Berenger, in the hospital bed, but. At the same time, I'm going to go back to Ebert's review, which was, I think, ultimately the thing that shoved me from disinterest to, I got to rent this on video sometime, which was he said he would have paid money. This is a paraphrase, but he said he would have paid money, real money, for just the film to take a timeout for like 4 minutes, have Greta Scacchi turn to the camera and explain exactly what the hell was going through her mind.
Yeah.
What she was doing, what she was hoping to accomplish by it. And ultimately, in this case, I have to go back to what Joanne Wally's character said, which is that she's a pathological liar and she's just trying to keep things together.
Well, okay, but it was a guy that she loved. She was trying to cover up a murder, and she wanted to keep the money. So I
she
think
bought
that
her
was
schemes
it.
in bulk.
She did. Well, the thing is, obviously, she didn't mean to kill her husband. It happened. I don't think that was, like premeditated. But, then she's like, well, when she wakes up in the hospital, why did she wake up? She had barely a scratch on her. How was she unconscious? I don't know.
She took a nap when she got there.
That must have been it.
Yeah.
But anyway, she wakes up and then they're like, your husband, he's been hurt. And she's like, letting the gears turn. She's like, I can work with this. I can work with this.
It seemed like the real Tom Berenger character was kind of a monster too. I mean, he was shouting threats at her.
You don't really feel bad for him.
You get the sense as a businessman he was also not a very good guy. So and it was self-defense. I mean, he was yelling threats at her. It was an accident, but it was self-defense. And yeah, she did love the guy. She was just trying to protect him. I mean, killing the Joanne Whaley's character was kind of a dick move, but
yeah.
Well, she wasn't protecting him. He didn't kill the guy. She killed her husband. He helped her cover it up. So the only argument you could make is she was protecting him from being discovered for covering up the murder that she had committed. Yeah. This was self-interest in her part.
And she kept
really,
trying to go to
honest,
Mexico, though, too. She was like, let's just go to Mexico.
Let's go to Mexico.
I love that they never actually got around to explaining what happened last time in Mexico.
Yeah.
We saw what happened last time in Mexico. They made love on the beach. And the waves rolled behind them.
That was supposed to be from the Mexico trip?
Yes.
That's what I got.
Okay.
That's why there's waves? There's like a memory of the last time they did it?
And Knights in White Satin calls her waves, so...
On the... on the beach. She said, we made love on the beach. And then they went, did that sort of flashback thing, which he sort of remembered. I was taking that as one of his fuzzy memories.
Actually, leading into the
Stanton's
occasionally amusing visual gags of that recur throughout this movie, we ended up noticing the particular recurrence of that whole breaking glass in the shape of a person thing. If you turned this into a drinking game, you would be dead by the end of the picture.
Oh yeah,
we weren't drinking, but every time they'd say we'd see glass shatter, we'd wipe our hand over. Shatter.
Yeah, I wrote in my notes like right away. I wrote opens with a pretty cool car crash, then like a little bit further down, and then we see it like 8 more times.
It has the strange feeling of something that, in a script form, feels simultaneously overwritten and underwritten. There are instances of people sticking their neck out in ways that don't make the slightest damn bit of sense, and there are things getting completely hand-waved in ways that also don't completely make sense. I get the feeling there's another half hour of this movie somewhere.
Yeah,
and there are all sorts of cute puppies and kittens, and then there is a parrot that yells "silly old bitch," and that's like the best. So,
let's talk about Bob Hoskins as a private eye operating out of an extremely crowded pet store.
Pet store.
Moreover,
that was neat.
constantly
was.
Oh no,
cute.
it was wonderful. It was a factor of adorability that the movie had largely lacked up to that point, and they actually managed to build it into his character. It wasn't raw eccentricity. It was just he trusted animals more than he trusted people. But leave it to Hoskins to actually make something like that feel credible, feel lived in. It's still, like I say, devouring his surroundings with every gesture. I mean, criminy, every bit of the man's wardrobe threatens to consume the rest of the frame. But even so, no, it's that is a delightful performance, and I get the feeling that he's like, is this camp? Very well then, this is camp. Camp is to be played to the hilt, same as anything else.
He definitely laid that accent on really thick. That New York accent. No, I'm a big fan of this movie. I maybe it's because I saw it when I was young enough that that it was actually surprising for me. That was one of the things that I really liked about it was the surprises along the way. They made me feel giddy in that same way that The Usual Suspects made me feel giddy, or Vertigo made me feel giddy. They do something different with their source material that other movies just don't do, and I appreciate that in this film, even though it's absolutely ridiculous. It's at least doing something different.
Yeah, no, it does not resemble the other films of its time. Certainly not the other theatrical films of its time.
Yeah, I mean, Nate, when you brought this movie up, you said it's not a good movie, but I love it. I mean, I had a blast. I didn't know what was happening half of the time, but I was into it. I was intrigued. I'm like, I want to know what's going on.
It was fun.
Are there twins? Is she actually that John Stanton guy? Which she sort of was. That was one of my theories, that she was somehow masquerading as him. But I didn't figure out the depths of what the actual plot was, that it was face swapping.
Yeah, so can someone explain to me what her end game was?
That's, we've been wondering about that for, 30 years now?
Mexico?
Well, get away with murder,
to be
keep
with
her
Jack Stanton.
boyfriend, and stay rich.
Okay, because the only way I can make sense of this is if she is planning on getting rid of him too. Does anyone else feel that? Or
No, she really loved him, I thought.
Again, it's a little up in the air.
So she was just going to count on him never regaining his memory, or she was going to take it for granted he would be along for the ride when he did get his memory back?
I think
she kept saying, let's go to Mexico. Let's go to Mexico.
Yeah, you know what happens in Mexico?
Afraid.
Disappearances.
Well, I don't think she wanted him to. I think she wanted them to disappear together.
I personally...
If he remembered, then he wouldn't blow it.
I personally feel a 95% absolute conviction that she was making this shit up as she went along. Give her a break, man.
I agree with that, actually, too. I think she was doing the best she could. Not making obviously the best decisions, but
her improv skills, yielded mixed fruit. But you have to acknowledge that they were there. This is someone who would rather do something than do nothing. Although I find myself concerned about now, of course, what happens now that it looks like they aren't towing that freighter of toxic waste out into the water. That ends up as an interesting hang-up that, of course, is completely unexplored.
Well, he's the one that said that they should not tow it. Everybody else wanted to tow it. It was Dan's idea to say, hey, hold off on that. And then all he had to do was go in and go, you know what? I just want this over with. Tow the thing, buy me out. We're done.
And then
they go off to Mexico.
And then they tow the freighter full of toxic waste out and sink it into the ocean.
Yes, they do.
Yep.
This is not a good result.
Late 80s, early 90s.
This is a very suboptimal turn, but I have to allow the set, both the exterior and the interior for the freighter was very, very neat.
Yeah.
Neat set dressing.
Moody.
Had a very palpable, I don't know, even necessarily want to say noirish quality, although it had a little bit of that, particularly in The Fog. It almost it had the feeling of something out of a horror movie, which
Made me think of Poseidon Adventure.
Yeah, me too.
Interesting.
I mean, I've never seen Das Boot. Are the interiors of that at all like this?
No,
I can imagine.
Those are supremely claustrophobic. You know, this freighter was damned roomy by comparison.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I've never seen Das Boot.
I haven't either. I hear it's long.
Let's throw it on the pile.
I have not seen it since 1988, and even then, I haven't seen the director's cut. So, well.
Good. This is another good pile option. Das Boot. I
Well,
like Wolfgang Peterson.
It's tremendously long, isn't it?
Peterson.
Yeah, that's all I know about it.
I believe it exists in a 2.5-hour version and a 5-hour version. Like so many other pictures. But now Peterson has always been a fantastic craftsman. This is I would not really call him inspired most of the time, but he's not bad. Or if he's bad, I haven't seen the pictures he was bad with. And sometimes he hits upon some absolute gems, like I don't know the moment where to pick a completely different Peterson movie, the moment where Peter O'Toole was pleading to Brad Pitt to return the son of his body in Troy was an amazingly moving moment. This one is a deeply amusing wind-up thrill machine of a type that they started making in bulk but missing the point for the most part, more or less the following year on the heels of Basic Instinct for quite a while thereafter. But it is, in that it is like so many other movies ever made, and yet like none of them, it is in fact like no other movie ever made, I think. Nobody else had the nerve to try to pull this particular movie off.
You know what? It had been done, and it'd been done the way it was supposed to be done. Why do it again?
Because there's money to be made.
Copied.
Oh wait,
yeah, but it doesn't need to be copied.
Not from a remake of Wolfgang Peterson's Shattered.
And it was also kind of like a fine balance of cheese and sex and fun and I can't. Is that easy to repeat, do you think? To get that that right little balance?
You could never get... you need someone... No, I can't think of anybody who could pull off anything resembling Tom Berenger's surprise face. It really is one of the low-key joys of this movie.
I didn't think it was that anything, but okay.
Well, it's only on screen. It's only on screen
Are we
for a
almost
few
to the
seconds,
surprise face? Are we almost to the surprise face? And then we get to it, I'm like, oh, that was... Okay, whatever.
I will allow it was on screen longer in my memory than it turned out to be in the film on this reviewing, but it's still the most amazing facial expression.
Are you talking about the shot where he's holding himself?
Yes.
Yeah.
And he has that.
I love that shot.
except it's more.
Yeah. Watch the YouTube to see that face.
Yeah.
I'm not doing it justice. It's really worth seeing the movie for that alone. And
but
Bob,
your
and
face
Bob
is
Hoskins.
pretty fun too. So everybody should watch the YouTube of the show.
Yeah.
So just.
Well, does anybody have any final thoughts on Shattered before we move on to our next movie or take our break?
Yeah.
Camp classic, waiting for broad scale rediscovery. And if there is more of this movie on the cutting room floor somewhere, Wolfgang, we'd be interested to see it.
Yeah.
I
definitely like to
Wolfgang Peterson's Shattered, the Wolfgang Peterson director's cut.
It's good fun. I mean, it's not, it wasn't going to win any awards, but it's definitely worth a watch. I enjoyed it a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So.
I mean, we've spoiled it for you now, but it's still it's still very entertaining all the way through.
For me, it was spoiled. It was spoiled within the first 3 minutes. So wait, okay, we've got two factors here. We have amnesia and we have facial surgery. What can we do with this? And what's the most ridiculous thing that can come out of this situation? Oh, I know. And that sort of led me down the garden path with it. But like I said,
me another hour to figure out to figure it out, but I did.
it didn't succeed in fooling me, so it was all about the execution, and for the execution, it's a little fluffy, but it was earnest in its fluffiness, and that's where we get the knights in white satin and the rolling waves, and we get Tom Berenger's surprised face holding himself in a barrel of formaldehyde, and we get a really spectacular, and we actually get 2 really spectacular car crashes.
Yeah. Well said. Yeah, definitely. Well, that was great. I love this movie. I'm so glad we got to talk about it. But why don't we go ahead and take our break? We will be right back. And we're back. Next up is Cast a Deadly Spell, a hard-boiled detective story about 1948 California when magic was all the rage. Zombie chauffeurs, coffee that stirs itself, modern convenience. The one man in town who won't use magic is H. Philip Lovecraft, played by Fred Ward. He's a detective with a past, and when Amos Hackshaw, played by David Warner, hires Lovecraft to find the Necronomicon, that past comes back to bite him. This was not on my pile. I really like this movie, or at least I definitely did when it came out. I saw it on its original run on HBO, and just fell in love with it. But whose pile was this on?
Well, it was on mine, which will probably be a surprise to at least a few of you. I don't think I'd ever heard of this.
Goodness.
Yeah.
I'd heard the title, but I'd never seen it. This was on my pile.
I must have seen it, but I don't know. I mean, I love Fred Ward, and anything he's in, I'm usually right there. But I must have seen it.
Yeah, I love that you turned to me about 5-10 minutes into the movie. It's like, wait a second, this was after Henry and June?
So this must have been right around the time of Remo Williams, right? Because
this was years
well
after.
Okay, because I saw that as a kid, and I loved it.
That was 1985.
I haven't seen that movie since I was a kid. I don't know if it holds up, but I just remember loving.
It does.
Remo Williams is a joy.
Remo fucking Williams. Jenner's made a whole song about it. So.
Unfortunately, I can't get the faux hair band to back me up on it, but it would rock anyway.
But I mean, I love the opening title. That says "Everybody used magic." Like, okay, here we go.
Yeah,
I didn't
this is
I didn't
our
know anything about
establishing set. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a very high concept premise. It's like, what if Philip Marlowe and H.P. Lovecraft were the same person? But at the same time, it's a very, very literate script as much as anything else. Wait for it. It doesn't just get the Lovecraft references, which actually I think it's a little bit, slim on, aside from the really, really obvious stuff, and particularly right at the end. It doesn't just get the Raymond Chandler references. I mean, the whole bit centering around a missing chauffeur at the beginning of the thing is straight out of The Big Sleep.
The Big Sleep, yeah.
One of the standout set pieces of the thing, the fight in the diner, is a reference completely outside of both of them. It's to M.R. James's Casting the Runes, itself the basis of Night of the Demon / Curse of the Demon, which is still one of the greatest goddamn horror movies ever made, and I will fight anybody who thinks otherwise. No, it's a film that knows the ground over which it is treading, and I think that was something that I particularly appreciated. That and just the very, very dry sense of humor running through the whole thing. Fred Ward's willingness to test that whole strike anywhere thing about the matches on absolutely everything in the movie. Recalling something somebody once said about Out of the Past, the Jacques Tourneur noir from 1949, if anyone enters a scene not already smoking a cigarette, they will be smoking a cigarette by the end of the scene.
Chekhov's Nick Fit, yeah.
Chekhov's Nick Fit, nice. And in the meantime, we get Julianne Moore, just starting out at this point, a couple of years before she started to hit I'm not sure how to metaphor this, either critical mass or escape velocity. Just before Shortcuts, just before Vanya on 42nd Street, which was the point where, which were between the two of them, the points where critics really started noticing her. But again,
that would be escape velocity. Critical mass is what happens before you collapse in on yourself.
fair enough. Fair enough.
Well, then you explode after that, though.
And in any event,
depends on how massive you are.
In any event, we get Clancy Brown, who is one of those, again, characters that we appreciate more and more as years go by. Wonderful turn as Detective Bradbury, wink, wink, by the always agreeable Charles Hallahan, who most of us probably remember best from John Carpenter's The Thing way back in '82. Just again, a wonderful collection of cult icons. That guys. I mean, David Warner, for goodness sake. There are some aspects of the movie that have not aged terribly well.
Yeah.
The casual homophobia of the movie.
I mean,
transphobia.
The whole resolution.
Character wasn't trans.
No.
I mean, the whole world is saved by a sex crime.
Yeah.
Well, the guy was trans. It was fairly explicit that he was going out to parties dressed as he was, so presumably he was actually trans.
I don't know. I'd call it a little bit up in the air, but again, the vocabulary was incomplete at that point. But yeah, no, it's either homophobia or transphobia. Granted, the homophobia and or transphobia of the actual 1948 probably hasn't aged terribly well either.
Well, I'm not even so sure it was particularly phobic. It was an aspect of the story, and it was used to throw us off at one point, but it's not like our main character was shaming the trans character for being trans, other than using a couple of casual slurs, which would have been era appropriate.
Yeah.
It was just, that's how you knew this other character who has died previous in the story, and it drew a few connections which sort of pulled the mystery together to sort of tell us why this person knew this other person, how the Necronomicon ended up in his possession, etc. So I'm not even sure that's particularly egregious in this case. So of course, your mileage may vary.
Well,
again, at the risk of okie doking, it's not the hateful sort of transphobia. That's probably not a thing I should ever fucking say again. Forget I said it.
It's not
again,
Silence of the Lambs.
Casual as opposed to deeply invested. Similarly, the hand waving of zombies from a zombie labor from the West Indies is definitely a bit of a head scratcher in its own right as well. And yes, as you observe, the world is saved by an instance of pederasty.
Well, okay, no, wait, it wasn't it her 18th birthday that night?
16th.
16.
Oh, 16. I thought. Okay.
And then she
Come
mentioned
on,
something
Romeo
about
and
being
Juliet
14
are
at some
14,
point.
so.
And I thought that she wasn't a virgin anymore anyway, because that unicorn was running like thunder to get away from her. But hey, okay.
Yeah.
So there are a couple of bits that obviously would not be the way that they would do it now.
I mean, I thought the whole zombie thing was like more like critical of slavery and that sort of thing. I don't think it was meant to
it's
be...
also placing the zombies where they come from originally. This is well before the Romero era of zombies. This is all, the Haitian influence zombies. So that would be where they would come from if you were going to have zombies in your story. But I mean, it's hard not to read it as a commentary one way or another.
They actually go more into the zombies a little bit with the mythology behind them and all that in the sequel, Witch Hunt. I don't know if everybody knew there was a sequel.
That one's still on my pile.
Yeah, I haven't seen it, but I did read about it.
It is available nowhere.
Does it have the same characters and cast?
Same characters, like Mrs. Kropotnik is in it.
She was great.
Yeah,
she was fun.
She was fantastic.
Yeah, but Dennis Hopper replaces Fred Ward.
And it was directed by Paul Schrader.
Yeah, I've probably
Really?
seen it.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I have it on
I feel
VHS. I'll rip it if it comes to that. I'll get a copy of it.
I feel confident I can source it, but
I mean,
Okay.
did Paul Schrader script it as well?
I would have to look up. I don't
Yeah.
recall directly.
I'm not sure either. But it's very good. It's a very, very good film. I'm a big fan of it. I haven't seen it in years, so I don't know if it holds up. The uh, like this one did not in certain aspects.
Hmm.
But
Did-
I'd like to figure it out. I'd
Well,
like to
I was
look
going to
at
say
it
we've been
again.
sort of yammering on about this. Did you want to elaborate your own feelings on the subject, Nate?
Well, when I saw this, it was a time when I was discovering Lovecraft, and
Mhm.
so when they had a main character named Lovecraft, I was like, "Oh my God, I get that. Those are the books I'm reading right now. Look at
Yeah.
that. That's great." And so I loved all the Lovecraft stuff. I loved that they used the actual old ones instead of uh, making up something like most Hollywood films do when they're translating material of this type. Um, I really liked how different it was, how it wove magic into the world, into that time period quite realistically in a lot of ways.
Mhm.
I found it really interesting, the little details of the film, like the coffee stirring itself, and that sort of thing. I really like those aspects, and I I do want to give a shout out to Lee Tergesen, who played the trans character, or who I think is trans. I'm not sure
Mhm.
actually. Um,
We'll go with either transgender, transvestite, possibly transsexual. Again, the vocabulary wasn't quite up to speed, nor
Right.
indeed were particularly the capabilities at the
right,
time.
right. But Lee Tergesen, I thought, did a phenomenal job and really made me. It's the one thing I dislike about the film is the violence that is brought down on that character, which I think is the transphobia itself. That
Yeah,
they
no, horrifying.
Yeah, that because it's because they are a transgender person that you find out is originally male, you're allowed to beat the shit out of this person. That did not. I found that really unsettling.
Yeah, no, that
Well,
definitely didn't age well.
Mm.
No argument on that front.
Mm.
I'm not sure I got that directly, but I can see how you can see that in there.
Mm.
I just thought it was another instance of a Philip Marlowe character interrogating someone, but I can see how you would take it as given that was the reason.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Um,
I mean, I can't imagine he would have been above slapping a dame
mhm,
if it was
true.
necessary. I mean,
yeah,
he was trying to get answers and he needed them fast.
yeah.
So
So the how to come to this? I'm going to be the pedant dick for a minute. This is not a Lovecraftian story.
No.
No,
No,
this is a
not even
Chandlerian
remotely.
story.
This is a Raymond Chandler story. This is the Big Sleep with some of the, fill in an adjective, fill in the name of a character here, there, and elsewhere. Philip Lovecraft in this movie bears literally no resemblance to the author.
Which is not a
I'm
bad
not gonna
thing
say any
when
of
you
his
know about the
characters.
author.
I'm not going to say any of his characters because he did have a few detective characters like in the Mystery of Red Hook. But this really doesn't make a lot of sense even in the Cthulhu mythos, because why the fuck would Cthulhu care about somebody's virgin status? That really pulls much more from, this is Satan they're summoning, really. This is
It was a tardigrade.
traditional. Sorry?
it was a tardigrade.
Yeah, it kind of
A
looked like a
giant tardigrade. It was
didn't
a
it?
water bear.
Also,
and I'll allow that gag felt a little bit like it had been lifted from the Monster Squad about 5 years earlier.
Yeah. And really the M.R. James connection makes a hell of a lot more sense. Because they do in fact go through the whole story of casting the runes in the 5 minutes in the diner, which is a
that
story
made me
about
very happy.
Yeah, which is a story about a magician who casts the runes at someone, writes a sequence of curses upon a slip of paper and gives it to his target. The target discovers it before the curse goes off and is then trying to force the other person to take the curse back. And you cannot pick it up off the ground, you cannot receive it as a gift, anything like that. That's the entire course of the story that M.R. James told. They just told it all within the course of the 5-minute fight in the diner. So that's a much more, as Jenner pointed out, a much more literary reference, a much more literary encasement of the stories from the literature into this Philip Marlowe story. And they don't do anything like that with any of Lovecraft's stories in here beyond just trading on his name.
Well,
which is what they do a lot of the time.
The name drops at the end of the movie were on point. You get the feeling that even if you get the feeling that David Warner believed in the the spells that he was trying to put across there. The name,
but it could have been any number of spells there. It could have been a reference to any mythology. It could have been a reference to any tradition. It didn't have anything particularly to do with Lovecraft or his stories.
Again, it's not you got your Philip Marlowe in my Lovecraft. It's you got your Lovecraft in my Raymond Chandler.
Yeah.
I have to go with I like both M.R. James and Raymond Chandler more than I actually like Lovecraft.
Yeah, you made that clear. You were saying, Shane?
So I watched this on Amazon with subtitles, and at one point somebody mentions Azathoth, and it was subtitled as Acid Goth. Anyway, that's just a little thing. But Wagner,
for what it's worth, HBO Max got it right.
Yeah, you mentioned the version. This is a story where if the hero had done nothing, everything would have been fine. Their plan was fucked from the beginning. The bad guy's plan. They picked the wrong girl. The
hero did do one thing.
He brought Grimaldi in.
Yeah, he sent that detective to look after that girl.
So
I think he knew what he was doing.
I thought that happened before for some reason. I thought they were already okay. So he deflowered her during the course of the events of this movie. But in the final scene, Lovecraft literally does nothing. He just watches the bad guy's plan go to shit, and everything's just fine. Like, the hero doesn't really do anything except send a sexual predator after a young girl.
Pretty much.
That's what he does to save the world.
There were actually a number of Marlowe stories, although I don't know that these were necessarily deliberate references on the part of the writer. There were Marlowe stories where he was almost reduced to a bystander status. Probably most notably the last one of one of his novels, Playback, which was itself based on a screenplay that was never produced, that was not a Philip Marlowe story. Marlowe was basically a bystander through the whole thing.
I mean, I like the fact that this movie was so sort of grounded in like the whole noir tropes that I was often surprised when magic would show up. I kind of forgot sometimes that this was a world where there was magic and monsters.
They keep pulling the rug out on.
Yeah, because it feels like you guys said, a Philip Marlowe story. It doesn't really feel like a magic story. But then when you see like a martini glass floating in the background or whatever, it's just kind of cool that the effort they put into little touches like that just to remind you that this world is not quite what you're expecting.
Yeah, it's also an old Spencer's toy, which is it's just a string from the bottle down to the glass, and you pour down the string into the glass, so the glass looks like it's hovering as you pour into it. But
well, again, very much in the spirit of consummate craftsman. Martin Campbell, of course, directed this after having been working for an extremely long time in England, but shortly after this was where he started to hit in the United States with, No Escape, GoldenEye, The Mask of Zorro, all the way up through Green Lantern, which made him back off for several years. But
I love No Escape.
No Escape is that's one I need to rewatch one of these days.
That's the one with Kevin Dillon, and it's like a prison island. Ray Liotta and Kevin Dillon.
Ray Liotta, Lance Henriksen.
I like that movie,
great turn by Lance Henriksen.
It's been a long time, but I remember enjoying that.
Yeah, need to revisit that one. I didn't particularly care for it the first time that I saw it, but I've revisited a lot of things and gotten different results lately.
I haven't seen Green Lantern.
I don't remember it, so
there you go.
Fire away. Let's watch it.
Yeah, to sort of revisit my point, turning off the asshole pedant part of me now. I like this movie. All the reasons I like it are the noir end of things, because I really do like noir, and this really is sort of a retelling of The Big Sleep, with all the way down to the person who's hiring him and the promiscuous young daughter throwing herself at pretty much anyone in reach, and
duplicitous club owner as well.
Duplicitous club owner. All the good points are in there, and that is why I would return to this film. The Lovecraft stuff is it's a little bit of a sour note, honestly, because it is so obviously grafted on, and it's really just this is a summoning Satan story that's just trading on someone else's name instead. So, but I do like it. I like it for all of its noir aspects. I like it for the hard-boiled detective, the gumshoe stuff. That's all fun.
You come back to this for Fred Ward.
Yeah.
Can we talk about the national goddamn treasure that is Fred Ward?
Oh yeah, he's wonderful.
I loved him since Remo Williams. Henry and June is one of my all-time favorite movies, and yeah, just Fred Ward all day long.
Had a pretty long relationship, I think, specifically with HBO. I think I first encountered Fred Ward in Time Rider, the little scene bit about a time-traveling motorcycle rider that I honestly don't think I've ever seen in its entirety, and certainly don't remember particularly well, but I kept catching like the last 15 minutes of it on HBO back in like 1983. And then later on, we got Remo Williams, which again, as an early PG-13 film, was in nearly constant rotation on HBO through most of my mid to late childhood. Another one of those times where we had an HBO trial. There was an HBO original with him and Raul Julia called Florida Straits that was rather good. And of course, then he came back for this as an HBO original as well. So he had I think he had a long and good relationship with the HBO people, whether it was by design or just things turned out like that. Ward, you never feel for a second anything other than his complete inhabitance of this character. He is effortlessly authentic in this role.
I mean, I love the trope of the detective who's, kind of a mess, kind of an asshole, doesn't seem to be doing any real investigating, and then when he's called on it, just casually reveals that he's solved half the case. Yeah. I mean, he has that scene with David Warner. David Warner's like, "What the fuck have you been doing?" And he just tells him, and David Warner's like, "Oh, okay, carry on then."
It's a very Marlowe move.
Yeah, and Fred Ward sells it really well. He embodies that really well.
Yeah, he's the best Philip Marlowe we never had. A lot better than James Caan was for HBO a few years later in Poodle Springs, but yeah, that was good. Ward is better. Adaptation of Robert B. Parker's completion of Chandler's last unfinished Marlowe novel.
Huh.
Yeah, James Caan and Dina Meyer.
Oh,
yeah. Directed by Bob Rafelson.
Dina Meyer from Starship Troopers.
Yep.
Huh.
As Philip Marlowe's wife.
Oh.
The one he ended up with at the end of the novel Payback. Or sorry, Playback.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
No. I like Chandler. He's my third favorite author.
One reference I found really amusing when he's talking to the gargoyle. He calls him Lon Chaney. So in this world where there are monsters, they have monster movies, and there's a guy named Lon Chaney who is playing monsters.
I actually took it as a reference to Lon Chaney Sr. in The Hunchback of Notre Dame from the 20s.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking as well.
And then he kicks the gargoyle in the balls.
Yeah.
Yeah, which... Okay, that's gilding the lily
right
a little
in the
bit.
rock.
We see
right
what
in
they
the
did
stones.
there. Gargoyles got nards. Sorry. There is a little bit of slapstick in this. My internal jury is still out onto whether it really needs the more comic elements, but I mean, realistically, there's enough wit and humor in the writing itself that most of the rankling elements, aside from the ones that we've already talked about, don't rankle that much. Mostly the movie is just a good time to be had. It's a big weird noir comic horror, pop literary memory fantasy blanket.
Yeah, it's got everything. I mean, you got your unicorns, and you got your. It's just nuts. It's good. It's even got
Bloody
musical
Rain.
numbers that are passable.
Mhm.
And
Oh, yeah, I forgot
yeah.
about the Bloody Rain.
Yeah, I had
Yeah.
forgotten about that from my earlier viewings as well. Again, it had been quite a while since I seen that. And the thing that I think I was most carrying away from this most recent viewing, because I hadn't even really thought about that, was how do you clean up after that?
You don't.
The
You
streets
just count on all
literally
the
run.
flies.
The streets literally run red with blood. What the?
I guess you wait for normal rain and just let that take care of it. I don't know. But that was another moment where I forgot. They were just talking, and this is, they're talking about a case, and all of a sudden just blood is splattering the window. I'm like, oh yeah, this is the magic world.
Yeah.
Rain of blood. Why not?
Brain of
They said they had
blood.
other colors of rain
Black,
too. and I
black
don't
rain.
remember. Yeah, black rain, red rain.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Purple rain.
Purple
No, Raining
rain.
Blood.
Which I've never
Slayer.
Oh, you've never seen Purple Rain?
No, I haven't.
That's okay. I haven't seen it either.
Me either.
That I know I have.
Or I've never seen what's the other one? Under a Cherry Moon or something? Is that his other
Yeah.
one?
I still
I
need to
think
see
I
under
saw
the.
it, but it's been a while.
I still need to see Under the Cherry Moon.
Do you really though?
It's a respect thing at this point.
Okay.
Anyway.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't have a lot more to say about Cast
Well,
a Deadly Spell myself.
Actually, I have one thing. We were talking about zombies, and these are not Romero zombies. These are
Voodoo zombies.
voodoo
Mhm.
zombies. These are what is it? Serpent and the Rainbow zombies. So,
That's
so
right.
yeah.
I like
That would-
Serpent in the Rainbow.
I
Yeah,
did
I
too.
do too.
Yeah.
I loved that movie.
Mhm.
So yeah.
Mhm.
But I thought it was good fun, and like I said, it just had managed to be dark in the right places and kind of silly and fun in the right places, and
Mm.
And we
Yeah.
love Mrs. Kropotkin.
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, she
was
is
It was amusing.
one of the absolute joys of the picture.
And you
Yeah.
said she's in the next picture.
The character. The character
the
comes
character.
back.
Oh.
But not the actress.
Oh, but it's not the same actress.
No. Not that I
Oh.
recall. I could be wrong about that. I reserve the right to be wrong, but I don't think so.
Yeah, Arnisha Walker as Hippolyte. I love that they actually pronounced it Hippolyte. Kropotkin.
His landlady slash neighbor
Slash,
Slash,
I don't know, Reverse Girl Friday.
Well,
Mm.
yeah, but she also helped him a lot. Like she was giving him predictions.
Well,
and
that's what
such, and-
that's what I'm
That's what he
saying.
means, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, why? Whatever.
She's not following his lead, is what he means.
Yeah.
She's attempting to lead him. So
Yeah.
All in all, I'd rather be in Miami.
Well, I don't know. I don't have much more to say about this film. It's I enjoyed it, regardless of the issues it has. I don't know. I would recommend people see it and make their own.
I mean, I agree with Matt. It wasn't Lovecraftian in the sense that Color Out of Space was. I mean,
yeah.
why would a great old one come to Earth just to eat a guy and then leave? That doesn't make any sense. But I mean, I thought it was fun. I thought the references were fun. I thought laying it on top of a noir story was fun. It maybe doesn't scratch that Lovecraft itch, but
Mhm.
it's a good time.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
No.
just the guy's name. It has
It's
nothing to do with.
It's not a
Lovecraft.
profound picture,
No.
but it is a very agreeable picture, and it is extremely well done for the most part.
Yeah, I would
mean,
agree with that.
Both of the films this week struck me as a little bit, and this is going to sound more depreciating than I intend it to be, but a little bit fluffy. There's a lot of craft around it. There's a lot of ephemera around it. There's a lot of bits and pieces of work, but I didn't find the stories profound. It kind of leaves them being both a little slight, but they are pure entertainment.
Yeah.
They're not attempting
Like
to.
some fluff.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Cast a Deadly Spell definitely
Right.
gets it across better by being of a significantly higher caliber than most of the HBO original productions around the time.
Yeah, that
For-
was not
for-
that was not a opening crawl that you look to for high quality all the time. So
Yeah. No, but for cable original entertainment in 1991, this bordered on the weapons grade.
yeah, this clearly stood out from the pack. Yeah.
Granted, I'm interested to see Witch Hunt because realistically, without Fred Ward in this movie, there wouldn't be a movie. So I'm
Yeah.
going to be interested
Yeah.
to see if Dennis Hopper keeps the side up later on.
Well, without Fred Ward in it, it's a series of set pieces that, without Fred Ward in it, doesn't have particularly interesting personalities driving it. So you're right. I wonder how
I hope that he kept the dog
Witch Hunt.
vomit tie.
Yes. Okay, I do have to say, I think my favorite bit in the entire film was one of the lines about the tie. That's a heck of a tie. Did it put up much of a fight? No, I snuck up behind it. Which I
want just right.
Yeah, is it directly snuck up behind it in order to put his tie on, and therefore it still doesn't know he's there?
On, you put it over,
Exactly.
You go at it face first. So.
It's one of the most classically Philip Marlowe exchanges in the entire picture. Specifically, the Humphrey Bogart Philip Marlowe from The Big Sleep.
Yeah.
Retains a lot of that tone specifically. It's definitely a little less Dick Powell, a little more Humphrey Bogart, but that's not a bad thing. That's just an observation of the phenomenon.
What was the bit from The Big Sleep where it's, well, that's my business. Well, maybe I'll make your business my business. Oh, you wouldn't like it. The pay's no good.
All right. Well, I think that's going to do it for us here on What's on the Pile. You can find us on Facebook and Twitter at What's on the Pile, or you can find us on YouTube under the Punch Bunny YouTube channel, or you can visit our website, whatsonthepile.com. Thanks for hanging out.